Chapter 11.0001, More Birthday by Skye. We had the most marvellous dreams, and when we woke up, it was early in the morning of the day after our birthday. We were still in the golden house in the middle of the lake. Minnow, Jem and I found ourselves in a massive bed with Six and Moat. Our quilt had holograms of dolphins and whales on its patches and all sorts of magical creatures. Every so often they'd leap from one patch to the next. There was a jack-in-the-box on the patch near Six's pillow. When it was nearly breakfast time, he popped up and bounced onto Six's face. She opened her eyes, confused. To her surprise, the little Jack poked out his tongue before snapping back into the quilt and then popping up again. "Happy birthday!" said the little Jack. "That was yesterday," said Six. "It's today as well," said the little Jack. "No, it's not," said Six firmly. "Oh, yes it is," said the little Jack, poking out his tongue before adding, "Idiot!" Angel came in just as he was speaking. "There's no need for rudeness, Jack," she said, "but you're right. These are the islands of time where birthdays are often repeated." "Really?" asked Six. "Really," said Angel. "Yesterday was the 11th of the 11th, today is the 11th of the 11th, and tomorrow might be as well." Minnow and I beamed at Angel, whilst Jemima and Six jumped up and down on the bed. "Hungry?" asked Angel. "Starving," said Jemima. "Just as well," said Angel. "Blizzard and Miguel are with Ben and Frank out on the deck. They're making banana pancakes." "My absolute favourite," shouted Jem. Frank and Ben brought in so many pancakes that Jemima and Six melted into giggles of happiness. Darling appeared with juices, babbling her happy flamingo sounds. Jax followed behind her with a huge birthday cake in the shape of a bumblebee, all chocolate and honey. "You all seem to love bees, so we made this for you," she said. "By the way, do you like my enchanted quilt?" "Yes!" shrieked Jem and Six, waking up Moat, who had to be fed straight away. We all sat eating and laughing for over an hour before Angel asked if I was ready for more questions. I looked at Miguel, feeling a little embarrassed. "Would you like me to go out?" asked Miguel. "No, but thank you for asking," I said. "I'm sorry that I was so stressed yesterday." "No problem," said Miguel. "I'm wound up like an old-fashioned alarm clock most of the time." I smiled, propping myself up against a huge pile of pillows and pulling the covers around me. "Okay," I said, "shoot." "In front of everyone?" asked Angel. "In front of everyone," I said. Blizzard beamed. "Very brave," he said. "I'd like you to imagine yourself at the grand old age of 90, said Angel. "So old," said Jemima. "Miguel only made us go to 21. Angel smiled. 90 can seem quite old, but I've lived for many thousands of years, so to me 90 is young. I know it's hard, but try to imagine how your life would have been if you'd grown up in a happy home with love all around, no disasters. By the age of 90, what would you have made of it?" I sighed. "It's a bit hard to imagine," I said. "A bit?" asked Angel. "It's super hard. But instead of the rubbish that happened to you and Ben, imagine if there'd been none of it." "Oh," I said, feeling a bit dazed. For a while I just sat there, enjoying the feeling of being happy with my friends, thinking about Angel's challenge and staring out at the golden lake. "Okay," said Angel, "start." "None of the horrible things happened?" I asked. "None of them," said Angel. "Everything was good." "Very good," said Jemima firmly. I nodded. "But are we allowed to keep our wings?" asked Six. "Oh, yes, can we have our wings?" I asked. "It's your story," said Angel. "Let's hear it." For about 3 hours, with morning tea in between, Six, Jemima and I talked about how our life could have been. Everyone was enthralled. We described our alternative life in the finest of detail. Six, Jem and I imagined things to be so very different. Every time we hit a memory about the cruelty of Isla and the Overlord or the brutality of the time virus, we reimagined our lives to be completely soaked in warmth and safety. We still knew that all the hard things had happened to us, but somehow the jagged edges had been worn away. By the end of the story, we were all feeling drowsy with happiness. It was as if we'd been dusted with a golden cloud of peace, and we were floating in it, surrounded by an oasis of bliss. Chapter 11.001, The First Surprise, by Skye. "An excellent story," said Angel. "Very well done. Now, I have a surprise." I could barely hide my excitement. Who gets to have so much birthday? "We've been invited to visit heaven," said Angel. "I knew it," I said. "When I was in a coma, Gabriel took me to the outskirts of heaven. It was brilliant." "You flew around heaven?" asked Solo. "Only the edges, but Gabriel said that one day I'll be able to go right in." "Well, today's that day," said Angel. Minnow's eyes opened wide and she looked a little pale. "We're going to heaven?" "Yes," said Angel, "to paradise, eternity, the place that everyone seeks." "Will we see Mum and Dad?" asked Ben. "Actually, we're going there to see someone else," said Angel, "but your parents may turn up. No one is ever quite sure what will happen. Heaven is a most unpredictable place." Minnow looked anxious. Angel ruffled her hair. "Not unpredictable in a horrible way," she added. Don't you have to die?" asked Minnow, "to go to heaven?" "Not even a little bit," said Angel. "From the islands of time, it's possible to go anywhere. There are no restrictions. We could visit Hogwarts if you like, or Narnia, or Neverland." Minnow looked confused. "So heaven is just an imaginary place, like somewhere in the Lord of the Rings or Harry Potter." "Do you think Hogwarts is make-believe?" asked Solo. "Don't you believe in fairies?" asked Escher. "Well, yes and no," said Minnow. "A little bit less of the no," said Escher. "I've been to Hogwarts, and I've been to heaven, and I'm here to tell you they're both amazing." Minnow sighed, looking relieved. "I suppose I've always hoped that magical places are real." Blizzard laughed. "Did you think we were all going to be slaughtered," he asked, "on your birthday, just to get into heaven?" Minnow blushed and then shrugged. "Where I come from, heaven is a bit of a myth," she said, "or at least it's usually talked about in the same sentence as death." "Plus," said Frank, "if the stories where we live are true, Ben and Skye's parents mightn't even be in heaven. They could be in the other place." "Hell?" asked McGarl. "Maybe," said Frank. "Hell is an invention," said McGarl, "made up by bullies like the thieves, so that everyone will live in fear." "Really?" asked Frank. Blizzard nodded. "The Overlord likes to think he knows about the powers that rule the universe, but he only knows... The Overlord likes to think he knows about the powers that rule the universe, said Blizzard, but he only knows about rules and cruelty. He knows nothing about heaven. Hell is definitely a lie, said Magal. If you make your life full of lies and fear-mongering, you dream up places like hell. We only know about paradise, said Angel. Sometimes we call it heaven because it's a lovely name. In flamingo mythology, it's known as the home of the great phoenix, said Darling. Blizzard grinned. I've also called it the wide blue yonder. Me too, said Ben. I could scarcely breathe. We might see Mum and Dad, I whispered. Ben and I hugged one another. We don't know that, said Angel, so don't get your hopes up too high. But we do know that we'll see Athena. Grandmother, hooted Jemima. Six did several loops in the air. Can I come? Asked Frank. Of course, said Angel. We're all going. Athena will have made birthday cake, said Jemima, doing a cartwheel. Definitely, said Six, shooting up into the air. Angel smiled. How do we get to heaven? Asked Minnow. A prophet is coming to collect us, said Angel. His name is Ezekiel. In no time at all, an enormous golden chariot arrived, churning and heaving with something like the sound of 1,000 helicopters. Intense light was streaming from its base, and on its sides were huge wings sweeping up and down, and some were going around and around in circles. There were also faces all over it, shining with so much joy that they were mesmerizing. Even though the chariot sounded like a massive machine, there was a strange singing underneath the helicopter sound. The more I listened, the more I could hear the singing. The longer we were near it, the chariot seemed to become less and less of a machine and more like some sort of living creature humming with happiness. Jax greeted Ezekiel with a hug, and Magal and Ezekiel appeared to be old mates. The prophet spoke very little, but seemed to say so much by simply being near us. Six was drawn to him and asked if she could hold his hand. Ezekiel smiled and lifted her onto his shoulders. Six sat there, beaming, as Ezekiel gestured that we should follow him. Once we were all inside, the chariot moved off. If you'd been watching, you might have thought you'd seen a small tornado or a sudden strange shimmering. To tell the truth, you wouldn't have been certain what you'd seen, but if you were asked later, you'd have sworn that you'd seen something incredible.